All right, so I think when we left off last,
We were gonna look, oh, actually, no, you were gonna look at prohibited acts and compare that to what we were looking at in the beginning. You know, it's funny, I never saw that. You know, I read the code in order and I
Yes.
stopped where I was concerned and then I,
Mhm.
like, oh, well, look at that. They actually tried to do what we were trying to do, which was bring it up together.
Yeah.
But somebody said, well, I don't know, I'm afraid, so we just put this on top of it.
Right, right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly what happened. I'm afraid.
Which is kind of weird, like, it was a cut and paste of some sort,
Yes.
the K, that the failure of any person engaged in delivery pickup, it was like, it just went off the deep end, it was a county thing, I think. Unconscionable trade practice of the county legislature was supposed to come before then, I was like, what? So anyhow, but it kind of did the trick for me. Did you have a chance to look at that all, Amber?
I did not.
Okay.
No,
I kind of suspected that.
yeah, it was just one of those weeks.
Definitely.
But I figure once we finish up today,
Yeah.
hopefully then it'll be like, get everything edited and over to Kim, and then back out to everybody. So I think, so unconscionable trade practice, is that where we left off? I didn't make a note to myself. Or did we leave off on penalties?
Penalties were off.
Okay, Article 4, remedies. Yeah, so we actually, it should be somewhat short. So the current penalty for someone who's working without a license would be, at the current fee structure, at 5 times, it would be $1,250 a day for violation.
Where are you now?
Article 4, remedies, 7940,
Remedy, 71,
7940.
79, 40. Where am I? Prohibited that. Sorry, yeah. Okay. That should do it.
Yeah, that's pretty stiff,
Yeah.
because it's every day.
Leave it to us to make the farm out of work. Teach your children.
That's working without a license,
Which, you're 51.
7940A. And the second one is the liability and workers' comp.
You say that work is performed, that would be post notification, right? Not prior.
Right. I think, yes. Otherwise, because if you're trying to take it to court, did you observe that they were working the day before?
Right.
So then this one is, if you don't have liability or workers' comp insurance, then you have a
So,
$2,500 per day penalty.
That would be a contract.
That would be what?
A contract, not a
Yes.
person.
Not any
Nice.
contract, yeah.
so I could, if the building department sees somebody not, but will they issue a stop work order, like first? And then I'm thinking, I mean.
Yeah, they should.
But then I'm thinking, so, so say Davis Reshek didn't have a license, our license expired or whatever. Or somebody came, but they have subs working on the job that are licensed. They would fall under that, but they've also, say a roofer, say Mulligan or Hunter, they would fall under that license, but they also have their own license. So if you shut the job down, you're kind of stopping them too. I don't know, just trying to think about all this.
Well, I don't know that they would necessarily do that. They would focus on the individual in violation
Right.
and probably advise them. I mean, they usually don't shoot first.
Oh, they like shutting down jobs, trust me.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's the new thing.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Did you deserve it?
We had done, we did on our second day of demolition, and we hadn't gotten the permit yet. We had applied for the permit. We were only up to like $2,000 or $3,000 worth of work. We weren't gonna go past 10, certainly we're not gonna be past $10,000. And they had the application back there.
And they shut down the thing because you didn't have the permit yet?
Yeah, because they didn't know that it was back there, apparently. But that's a whole.
All right, so they got ironed out.
Yeah.
That's kind of my
Yeah,
point.
yeah. But it'd be nice to try to iron it out first before,
I get that. Well, that's something for management to talk about. Iron first. The flat iron, then the shooting irons. I mean, none of this stuff has been called into question thus far, anyway, has it?
Yeah, I mean, some of these I was like, we should start scratching.
yeah, well, D has to come out, obviously.
C, D, and E,
C, D,
Yeah,
and E,
C should
yeah.
go too.
Yep, C, D,
and E.
and E.
Yeah, because I had that as being duplicative.
Was that a sticker? I don't know. We're not,
Yeah.
we're not,
Oh,
Are
yeah.
we doing that? Are we
They haven't
doing
issued those stickers anymore, I don't think.
yeah, so it doesn't need to be here.
Still stickers.
We still do have stickers, but we're not using them often, they're not really very.
Well, they fade in like a month. They're.
Yeah.
Quickly,
Yeah.
and they don't really forget the scale house anyway.
Then F, G, and H, for me, I didn't understand advertisement in the last sentence.
Oh, yeah, because I think that, like,
I don't,
Well, yeah,
F,
F, G, and H,
G and H,
Yeah, I
okay.
had
the last sentence, the word advertisement, what is that referring to? What does that mean?
yeah, I think it's like each time that they do, like, present themselves as,
Think advertisement. Oh, that's,
deceptive.
Or is it they advertise in the paper or something?
Don't find it all,
I know, I
That is
underlined it and put a question mark too.
that's
Yeah,
something, that-
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's lifted something from somewhere else, I promise you.
I mean, again, this is, it's
Seems like-
giving different fines for things that are already, like, you're not, like we have in the earlier section.
Right.
So I feel like we could just use a blanket statement, like if you don't have the license, that's good, and then if you break any of the other rules.
Right. I mean, you could roll this up into a tighter
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
couldn't you?
Yeah, I think it should just be A and B, because even lack of insurance is within what we've already wrote.
Right.
Right.
Again,
Mhm.
repetition of things.
Right, exactly.
So what do you propose for F, G, and H?
And getting rid of it, because we've already addressed,
Just keeping A and B.
yeah, like we've already said, like if you have false or misleading stuff, like it's already covered.
What section was that? That, I just don't want to look at that one.
Yeah, let me- Sections, is it under conditions of license?
Yeah, I mean,
It was-
sort of counterintuitive finding it.
Right, yeah, exactly, that's why, it was under prohibited acts, so it's it's currently Article 3.
Okay.
I think if you do any of the things in Article 3, we just say, here are the possible fines. And that's where we wanted to build in working it out before going to a fine.
And again, yeah, for the board's sake, not to do with this committee, but this is why it'd be nice to have like an index or something where you had word fine,
Mhm.
and you could find it everywhere. So if you wanna, budget season coming up and you wanna revamp fines across the board, you can find the fines easily.
Oh, you can't control F.
Well, maybe. I had so much trouble with this. When I searched something in the doc code, it would come up, it came up like, I don't know, 43 times.
Mhm.
And I do it again, it would come up like 46 times. Like, then I could do it again, for 41 times,
Mhm.
same exact search.
It might depend on exactly where your cursor was when you started the search.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Sometimes if you move down a couple of lines from where you first found one, it would go from there
I
forward.
think I was doing it right from the top.
Could be.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Mhm.
or the beginning of that chapter, yeah. It was just-
Yeah, I think if you download it to a Word document, then you can,
Then you could do it, you're right.
yeah, but I don't think you can do it here. But yeah, there's so much,
I mean, the remedies thing,
Where is it, where? I don't know, I'm looking for something, I don't know if I find it.
I know, I'm looking for,
I'm looking for, where does it say if you do a project and not get a building permit? What is the penalty for that?
I think that's earlier in the code.
um,
That's not a contract.
that's not in here. If you don't get a building permit, that's not in here. If you don't get a license, a contractor's license,
Okay.
that's the only thing that's in here.
And is that, and it's in the code? What section of the code is
It'd be
that?
43, about getting a building permit would be in 43, chapter 43.
Well,
Is there a list of penalty for not getting a building?
An applicable thing would be Article 2, I hate this, B14,
Okay, Article 2,
willful or deliberate disregard, violation of the building, sanitary, fire, and health laws,
oh, yes,
okay? Town, county, or state.
yeah, that was Article 2, what,
And
7920,
B14,
the,
7920,
oh, yes,
and B14.
yes.
Willful or deliberate
Yes.
disregard, you can have.
Yes, okay, yeah, so it's there, Albert.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Now, what about a violation for those?
Then that's what I was suggesting is that rather than have all this other stuff,
I guess what I'm getting at is,
It's so
how many,
easy to get
how
lost
many
in this.
instances do we have where somebody's done work and they haven't got a building permit?
Well, the
To have
building-
some retribution,
So the
yes,
building.
so that would be in here then.
okay? And
Yeah,
as a
but I also
fine,
think
as,
it's-
as a,
And they would also get, like, I'm looking at the fine penalties for offenses for building permits or lack of. It's, if you violate any of this code, it's a fine no less than $500 and no more than $2,000 or 15
Wow.
days in jail, or both for each and every violation.
Or what?
This was, what Al was
This is
asking, this was about a
chapter
building, if you didn't get a
42.
building permit.
somebody
wanna just compare-
didn't get a building,
And
didn't,
somewhere in there it says permit required. I know that, okay? And there's a penalty assigned for that. And you're looking to bring that forward into this section as well?
yeah,
I would
I don't know, whatever, it's,
be mindful, never try to craft a law around one incident, just in case you're doing that. If you have one target thing in your mind,
no, I'm just throwing it out there.
all right. but like-
We have, what do we have? A and B is strictly for the licensing, so we're just keeping it to the licensing, contractor license. A and B, penalties for offenses is just a violation of license or providing insurance, et cetera. Those two things?
No, what I was suggesting is that if you violate anything in the prohibited acts section, then we have, A is, if you don't have a license, here's your fine. If you break any other prohibited acts, here's a fine. And then we do something that, at the discretion of the the contractor review board, it could be this fine up to imprisonment or
Do
something.
you think there's any future in some level of scalability of response as far as
Well, that's what I'm thinking is that there's
like
discretion.
with traffic? I mean, I keep thinking of the DMV when I'm thinking business licensing in general, you know, that they don't usually hit you with a truckload first time out. Necessarily.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to build in.
But that could also be the judge, you know, you could have a minimum fine. Well, I don't know. Sometimes the judges like to let them off, and one Reed's complaint is that sometimes they let them off too often, you know? They're slap on the wrist kind of thing. You got
I
something.
guess I was just thinking of a blatant disregard.
Well, that's
I mean,
listed,
Get a permit.
that's in there. That's a willful disregard of the code. That's in at number
That's in
14.
chapter 43.
But you can see, even instead of a fine for somebody who's from, doesn't know, comes,
Yeah.
from then you go there and you say, okay, you need a license. We're doing a stop work order on this. Get your insurance to us tomorrow, bring a check, get your license, and then you can go. No fine, no penalty, but stop it.
That's generally what they do.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
You know, I think that's.
For the first time, for the first time,
More
for the first
egregious.
time.
I hear that. I think you're thinking of more egregious situations than that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm looking at somebody doing a project on weekends or whatever, without a permit,
Without a permit.
a substantial project.
Yeah. Well, then you're gonna enter a whole nother branch, I think, Al, of like, sort of defining substantial, and usually these guys feel their way through it, and once somebody sees the building inspector, that's pretty much a wrap. Because they really don't want any, they
Yeah.
really don't. I mean, I've heard
But
of,
the situation comes to the town board. That situation
Right.
with Gardner's Creek, with,
or even the dock,
out on, yeah,
I know,
out on Ram Island.
yeah.
I mean, the guy brought the elderly woman in, I mean, Jesus, and, she was just saying, we didn't know, and her daughter, and it was like, this guy knew, he says he's a building inspector in North Haven. Knew what the hell he was doing,
Yeah.
didn't get a permit. So it's like, I think, not to hammer somebody, but I think there should be retribution for that, substantial, really, because the guy willfully knew what he was doing. He's a contractor, he was a building inspector. He replaced a substantial amount of deck around
They
the,
are ultimately, I don't think would impact the judge, as much as like it's a first offense here. They usually, in most courts, they don't review your priors, you know what I mean? They're not considered,
there's, things for subsequent violations, or
you don't want somebody to think that you're not watching.
a bad actor, that continues to,
They're not, they exist.
sure they do.
They exist.
This is why, once changes are made and adopted, this is why I think it's important to send a copy of this to everybody
Mhm. Oh,
that has a
definitely.
license,
Oh,
Don't
yes.
make them just like, not everybody reads the paper, has time to
No, no.
go through all the legal
That's very
applications.
true.
Have a listserv, and, you may not, so obviously if they're not a licensed, they're not gonna get it, but at least the licensed ones will get it, and they'll know that there are changes and stuff in it.
I don't know if they even have, did the building department have a running sort of updated types of situation, a link on the site for contractors to stay abreast of current events?
Sort of like Peter's talked about
Yes.
before, I don't believe exists.
Okay.
I have to
That's
check
not a
with
terrible
Mary, but
idea.
I don't believe so. But I mean, we do have a,
Because sometimes those people have good input too, on what you're doing. The student may not know from out here.
I get a notice every time that a work session or town board agenda gets posted. It would be nice to know if there's any change, well, I don't really care now that I'm retired, but I would have liked to know, any changes in the building department,
Right.
kind of thing. And it could be something as simple as
Policy change.
two people are out sick and two people are training, the office is closed for the next 2 days. That's a nice thing to know,
That's something for management.
Yeah.
That's for you. Because it's not a bad idea to keep people posted. I mean, I do remember distinctly my time sitting there that there is a sort of a silo mentality.
Yes.
You know, when you're doing this,
Right.
you forget that people out there are doing what they do.
Education
You know,
is the.
They weren't
the
watching you, because they didn't know it was their day to watch you.
Education is the biggest kind of thing to learn about, you know, when you.
Like I say, and sometimes you get good input from people that are involved or sort of affected by things that you wouldn't have
Yeah.
thought. So, anyway, back to where Amber was, we're still working this remedies thing, that's just an overall kind of a what?
Well, we had, so, kind of jumping around a little bit.
Yeah,
So
well,
under the Article 2, under disciplinary procedures, we're going to reorder that, but one of the sections, we had procedures, we had powers, so.
This is really annoying that you have to go back to the very top thing to get.
Yes,
each and every time, I know, it'd be nice to open it all up and be able to scroll through.
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
What's up with that? Thought we used to be able to do that.
I feel like they changed something.
Yeah, I do too, because I mean, I haven't really been looking at the code, but I don't think this was like this.
You could actually miss something you were even looking for.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, no, we.
You know what I mean?
Maybe that's somehow why I was getting different search numbers.
I think so, I think so. Yeah, I think E-code, I think that's the name of the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they changed it because it used to, I agree, it used to be different. You could
Seems like
go
it,
down.
either that or just my senility.
So who's in charge of is that the clerk's office?
No, that's independent contractor.
No, but who is the one who's
who's the
liaison with them, and who's the one who, I mean, it's clerk's office sends them
Oh, yes,
updates and
yes,
stuff, so
Yes,
they're probably the ones who deal with them and pay them and all that kind of, or get the bills.
yeah, and bills come in, we pay.
Right,
them.
you pay, but I'm saying they're the ones that are interacting with them.
I don't even think there's any, I mean, they just send the
Okay.
new laws up. But as far as this, I think it would probably be, they'd have to change it for everybody. Like
Yeah,
whoever uses.
They don't pick us out and say, okay, we're gonna screw Shelter Ryan.
I mean, I can't imagine other people, other municipalities are happy with that, and I wonder if there are other code companies out there.
Amber? That you?
No,
Watch out. That's a $500 fine. The penalties and offenses, right? You want to grind through that? Or I think that might be a place, actually, if you were going to scale response, you might consult with the building department and see if they have any thoughts on, you know, severity of this and that, first, second, and third type things.
that's what I was thinking. And we've got like a couple things like I finally found what I was looking for, like, you know, suspend or revoke a license in lieu of a suspension or revocation or imposition of fine. We want to put in, we may accept a written assurance of a compromise between
Right.
parties. So that needs to get moved down into that section. But then any of the other prohibited acts, do we want to single any out? Like, so we have one, if you don't have a license. Do we want the insurance to be a separate one? Do we want working without a building permit to be a separate one?
Right.
Or do we just leave it to the discretion of the board to decide where in the range of fines?
I don't anticipate seeing any of these things on a first offense
Mhm.
at this point.
Which then, if it's discretionary, or do we put in first offense, second offense, et cetera, which we have done with some laws?
Right.
Like,
You know, that's what I meant by scalability of
the
response.
alarm code say this, for example,
Yes.
is one that's.
I don't anticipate, unless it was some real environmental travesty, this board seeing that on a first offense kind of thing. I just, you know, you don't pull a license, even Dewey's, I don't know if they.
Well,
Right.
somebody could do something, and they did something that caused like
They could.
crazy damage to somebody. I mean, they could be doing excavation,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden this runoff floods somebody's finished basement, the neighbor's
Totally
finished
get it.
basement or
And
something.
I agree, there will be an egregious situation perhaps,
Yes.
but under general circumstances, we're not seeing
So I
it.
don't think I think it's more case by case. I think this stuff is, instead of saying, oh, the first time you get spanked by this, because it could be something minor, or it could be something like that,
Mhm.
something big.
Like putting in a dock.
Well,
It's not that I was hung up on that. I'm not hung up on that in any way. Clear.
You don't need a building permit for
Very
dock, but-
frustrating to me.
I understand
It
that.
was very
You don't need a
frustrating.
building permit for
Lately,
dock.
and then
And then they got a
You need a
town.
town, you need a, Val, you don't need a building permit for a dock.
I'm just,
I know, you need a dock permit.
I know.
We've had it.
I know that, but I'm
What
just,
you could do as
We
a
did say
board,
it here, right? Did we?
Is-
Dock, wetland,
Yeah,
zoning.
we didn't say dock.
exclude people by code
I thought we
who have been found
Add that.
Is it in there? Where?
in violation of it, and getting further permits or awarded town contracts.
something, yeah.
That's almost an obvious thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, if somebody has to be in good standing with the board in order to get the contract, then that would take them somewhat out of good standing, at least out of your scene. Right?
Yeah.
That's another thought. I mean, this could go on. So how do you want to handle it?
That's what I was gonna say, so we're back to the question of, do we want to roll up all of these prohibited act violations into one generic, or do we want to single out a few?
Well, why don't you try rolling them up first
Okay,
and see if there's not something that wants to be called out?
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes when you read it, it makes a whole
Yeah.
lot less or more sense.
And once we've got this shrunk down, it'll be easier to read.
To read, yeah.
I mean, I will confess that this fragmented stuff is a good.
Yeah, mine too, because I'm like,
Yes.
I know I saw it. Where is it?
I know.
Like,
You know, once it, you know, in what you might think would be a reasonable draft
mhm.
of the thing,
Yeah.
you know, it can be crude as hell, but it's, as long as it's there, I can look at it and say, all right, this doesn't follow.
And then how about like, just build in a range, or do we want first offense, second offense, third offense?
Like a range for first offense and range for, I just don't think you want to have this is specific, I don't think
Right.
you want to say $500 for first offense, because it could be something catastrophic.
Right, well, like, we tend to have in here not exceeding, so the fine not exceeding, except for,
Those types of things, you know, I mean, you could get, the fine is one thing, whether they visit us or not is another,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
In fact, you almost, as I've been saying, I would much prefer to see somebody actually having been before a magistrate and found guilty of what we're accusing them of
mhm.
before we decide we're gonna pull their license,
Well, that's why we want to have a range, like,
if you know what I mean.
yes, yeah, but that's, yeah,
That's a ground for appeal right away. You know, I wasn't found guilty. I was found innocent.
mhm.
So why is my license fixed? In other words, I'm trying to avoid us from being the first resort. Does that make any sense to you, Al? I mean, when you put down your mallet, you put down, all right, Thor, when you put down the mallet,
Yeah, I can't wipe it out of my brain. I'm trying hard.
I know that.
trying hard, Paul.
no, I know that, but I can actually see it. It's the forehead, it's like the trigger. But, you know what I mean? It's like, I would prefer us not to be the area of first resort, the first resort for any offense, really, unless it's just outrageous. And I can't even imagine what it would be that doesn't have some law associated with it that we would, you know, in other words, we have to have grounds for taking something, and this sets the ground, but there are also violations of law in general,
Right, yes.
right?
Mhm. Although we're trying to, like, well, this is a place to, like, if there is disregard for dock,
Right.
wetlands, or zoning code.
Disregard
Yes.
would have been proved out somewhere in some venue other than this, I should think.
Well, no,
This is a violation of law.
we'll get back to the dock example.
That's a violation of law. They were fined by the DEC. That's valid evidence, right?
Yeah,
Okay, it's definitely there. The building department, you know, that's for sure. You know, that's worth talking about then.
So does it say in here, to issue any type of fine, you have to have a hearing first, or could a fine be issued without a hearing?
The fine is,
Somebody doesn't have.
again, the fine, generally, this isn't, once we get out of the contractor's review, all right, we're now advising the magistrate about the fines available to them as remedy, all right? They get instructed by this law. this is not the license review board's law. This is now, we're back into the code. And we have a little section, 7920, I think it is, right?
For suspension or revocation?
Well, that's the license review board.
Yes.
Okay?
Mhm.
Everything left and right of that has to do with law as a generality. So these remedies are for the magistrate. That's generally how law works. What I'm trying to tell you.
Yes, yes. Except the magistrate in this instance is the license review board.
And so, well, in your mind, but not there. This is code.
Yes.
All right, so they're gonna get a violation, they're gonna get written up by the building department and sent to the judge. Right? They don't get sent to us.
I thought they did. I thought this is saying, directing it to this board.
Why would it do that? It could.
I thought that was the way it was written. And
That's the way it's written currently.
Currently it's a little bit between the town board and this board.
Yeah.
And we kind of, or the town board decided they wanted it to go
To
to this board. That's what.
That was for the license.
That was for any violation of
This section.
a contractor's license.
The license.
Not for not getting a building permit, that would be the building.
If I may interrupt, we're allowed, we have a choice of seeing it or not seeing it. But those are all code violations, that's the whole point of it. Right? And they all would have some penalty associated with them.
But if the wetlands, if somebody violates the wetlands, it's the town board that would issue the wetlands fine. It's not, doesn't go before a magistrate. It's, it's the
There's some
town.
adjudicating body, and when, in some cases, I guess we could be that.
I kind of thought it was.
Where do you, I
I kind of
don't,
read this.
point me to the place that says that, and then I'll,
Well, it said it was contradictory between town board and the license review board.
Yeah, it's 7920D and 7921.
20.
I'm impressed you came up with that number that fast.
Because I was thinking, I'm in the same place,
20.
trying to figure this out, so.
Upon a finding that the licensee has been guilty of any one of the following. That's B, okay?
You're in B.
That's 7920B. Function, or misrepresentation.
Yes, it's any act or circumstance set forth in this chapter
Mhm.
in D1. 7920 D1.
Right.
I have fraud, misrepresentation, or bribery. Or is that, you're looking at the new language?
No, I'm looking
No.
at what's on,
This is why it's part of the problem. It's
yes.
because you've got 7920B.
Article 1,
So I'm in D, 7920 D1.
I've got 20. That's, I'm looking at fraud, misrepresentation, what's number 2? Making any false statement?
We took that out.
Okay, so you're looking at the revised, in other words.
No. But what we're saying is we've got stuff here, like, here's one section where we have powers. And then if you go from B down to D, that's under function. And then D
Right,
also talks about being able to suspend, revoke,
right.
impose a fine.
Well, we added revoke or suspend, it was only
Yes.
suspend for the 30
Yes.
days
Mhm.
in there, but it was for any act or circumstance upon forth in this chapter. Set forth in this chapter.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just go back to where we were and say those fines recommended or stated as maximums, right?
Yes.
Would be to advise any adjudicating body,
Mhm.
whether it's the town board, this board, or the magistrate down the street.
So,
I mean,
So you want to turn this, instead of the license review board actually being,
no, what I'm saying is the license review board is just a fragment of this entire section here.
Mhm.
I mean, you know what I mean?
yeah, so the only thing that you, well, if I'm getting this right, the only thing that we should be able to do is revoke or suspend a license. Because that's that should be our power. We shouldn't kick it to justice court.
Well, I'm saying that you could do it. I'm saying that, but that's what those numbers are for, that any adjudicated by, whether it's us, the town board in the case of a wetlands violation, or the guy down the street in case of a building permit, or something like
I
that.
think the way it works, I think, man, I could be wrong, the way I've always kind of seen it, like, if there's a wetlands violation, the town board, we all heard the
Right.
violations, we could do things, we could do stuff, we could issue fines. I don't think we could do jail time. I think that has to come from a
I
judge.
don't know how that even works with, if you have, really have a split jurisdiction like that, I don't know how that works. I would think that would, a wetlands violation should be going for a judge too, shouldn't it?
But never has, so it's done before the
I
town
didn't
board.
realize that, I thought that we might be doing.
Were you on the one we did the?
I do remember it well, but I just don't know whether that was in addition to fines, or whether it was just us adding a
Just
little bit
us.
of salt in the.
I kind of have a feeling that a town board or any of these boards probably couldn't do jail time. Not that we want, I'm just saying, it's in there in a lot of chapters, jail time, but nobody's, I don't think anybody's
It's
ever.
almost like a prerequisite, isn't it, to put jail time in?
Yes, they have to give you an
They have to
alternative to
put
pay.
jail time in,
Oh.
so
They give you an alternative to pay.
it's always added to.
They can't give you both, but jail time, Bob has explained that to us, a couple of times, that
Okay.
you have to have jail time in.
Luckily, I've never gotten caught. To know that.
You're all right, better be all right.
You do realize we're being recorded.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Sometimes we forget.
We had some fun, though, I know.
Okay.
Like you're not admitting to
Yeah.
any specific thing that someone can now come back to.
Surrounded by boys in it. What can I tell you, sweetheart? Man, children, so, that's a man's decision as far as how you want to handle that.
Yeah, I think actually, I feel like this is where
Lawyer.
like, the lawyer needs to come in to say exactly what direction,
They will tell you how best this would
where
go.
is this, who's going to be the one to.
So,
But I can't imagine a lawyer not looking at this and wanting to scream.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever did this, they got paid by the word.
Yes, that's exactly.
No, you think the next
I
step,
said it, but it's true.
in broad strokes, the next step is to kind of get this kind of cleaned up and then
We want,
get the building department and then the lawyer.
I think they could
or-
probably simultaneously be looking at it.
Okay,
Just to see if we run afoul of things.
Exactly,
Yeah, that's it,
exactly, yeah, okay.
Is the licensing review board the first stop
I would
for
say,
everything?
say,
If the homeowner has a complaint with the contractor,
No, the
does
building
it come to the licensing review board?
well, the first step is the building
building
department,
department.
where they make the
Building
complaint
department,
against it.
then they make the referral where?
Yeah. And if I imagine if I was working back there, I would advise the contractor, you got a situation here, you can either, fix it,
Yeah,
or we can move to the next step. How would you do it, right? I mean,
they come and then they delegate. If
Let
they
them know.
find that
this is where the road is, this is how it goes. You can turn off the road now, but you keep going.
I mean, they're the ones, all goes to them, they decide what happens to it. If it's,
I would just-
if it's something that had involved a dock, more, it could go to the town board because
I would
the
just
town,
try to-
if it's the wetlands, it would go to maybe the town board. If they find a dead body, they're gonna go to the police department. I mean,
I would just try to avoid unnecessary litigation or damages that we might incur by doing something out of order before somebody's really been found to have done something. That's kind of where I don't always articulate quite as well as I'd like to anymore, Al, I've gone pretty much feral since my days.
I noticed some slippage.
I don't talk nearly as much as I used to. And so sometimes my words get spun around, but I've been trying to keep us from doing something, extreme before we have really the grounds for it.
I'm with you on that. The mallet's over here.
Anytime, this is definitely something that the lawyer is getting very close to being ready to see.
Yes.
Once we got some crude draft put together, if we've done anything horrendous.
Yeah.
And the simpler, generally speaking, the better.
Yeah.
Plain language and.
I mean, I think we do one draft, and we kind of like get rid of all these other papers.
A lot of
We
it
just work it
was,
as one.
a lot of this was
Right there.
people at a committee, like, well, what about this situation?
Yeah.
What about this situation?
It's always-
We gotta Put that in.
Well, that's
And it
what I'm
was
saying, like,
oh,
if
yeah.
it, you know, like, better to get some of the stuff, a little input from the building department before we go to the lawyer.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm
no, we
back
can
and
do
forth,
that.
you
It's a
know.
possibility, there's nothing, I don't have anything wrong with that, I don't see anything
Yeah,
wrong.
that's fine, we can do that, especially,
This is a camel.
Yes,
Is it what?
with Campbell.
The town attorney made a joke one day, he said any committee, you know, an animal designed by a committee is
Yes.
the camel.
Oh, absolutely. Camels, giraffes, they're all sometimes species, it's like, yeah. No, absolutely, there's so much repetition, that thing, it's gonna be tiny when we're done,
oh, yeah, it's much smaller.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, I mean, you're just trying to get bad actors out of circulation. How hard, how many words does it take to
Right.
say that?
You need to do this, this, this. If you don't, you're gonna get spanked. Boom, simple as
Because the
that.
more specific you are in law, quite often, the more trouble you get into, because what you left out.
Yeah.
The general is like, yeah, that fits in there. It's a big basket and that fits in. Otherwise, you're trying to remember everything you should have, and it's like, yeah.
Yes.
And the magistrates are pretty good at seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit of the law, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. I think we're done for today then.
That's,
Why are you laughing?
that's because it's this Barney Miller episode. When your mom is stoned. All right, let's call it a day. My eyes.
Swish, swish.
Okay, we'll close the meeting.
Oh, do you want to
Oh, wait,
schedule or,
oh, yeah, schedule the next
I
one.
mean,
Well,
how long do you think it's gonna take to get? You're gonna work on trying to get this?
first, Kim and I
Kim
have
and-
to just get this, all the changes incorporated, and then get it to the building department, and then get it to legal. So I think maybe,
But you're gonna get it to us, too. I mean,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yes,
So we
yes.
can look at it and say, oh, that's not what we meant.
Yeah, I think it's to show, maybe
Yeah.
show it to us before it goes
Okay,
to
yeah.
them, I
Okay,
think.
yes, definitely.
So it's up to basically you guys, your timing,
This is very
workload
specific,
and stuff.
the specific things I want from them as far as the penalties and things like that, right? And the scalability,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense to them or not, you know?
Mhm.
What I'm trying to avoid, I think, is some kind of ad hoc process which denies people due process.
Yeah.
See if the lawyer thinks anything like that.
I almost feel like, yeah, I mean, we can get it to everybody, take a look at it, and then see if we need to meet,
Yeah.
Okay.
or if it's then gonna go to them, and we'll just schedule
Yeah, we can
something.
look at
Well,
Yeah.
what, would it, I'm just saying, I know I'm getting in my final
Yes.
weeks here, because
You
I'm
are.
less than 4 weeks from
You are, you're
yesterday, I'm
gone.
gonna be.
Mhm.
We
So I'm
really
just
did-
saying, would it be better to
Put it on.
put on the date and not use it than try to scramble, oh no, I can't do it then, you can't do it because
Right.
you're a doctor and I'm just saying it might be
Okay.
better to,
When are you leaving?
27th?
Okay, so we have time for one more meeting in the middle of the month.
Right.
I don't see it taking less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 2 weeks, just.
Yeah, I don't see it taking less than
So
that.
14th?
Right,
Back and forth
exactly.
Because it's a busy time for everybody too. It's spring and the building department will be up to their eyeballs,
Mhm. We're already up
I
to.
think.
And,
So, yeah, the 14th,
There's training in here, I believe. Or no, it's in the EMS building,
And that's in the morning.
right, that's,
in
yeah,
the morning, yeah. Okay. That works for me, the afternoon.
Yep, me too.
Three?
we could do 3,
That's another Wednesday?
yes.
Yeah.
5:14 at 3 PM.
Yes,
At 3?
at 3.
Auditors will be gone?
They'll be gone.
They don't find any bodies. Calendar, 5/3. While we're young, come on.
Now we can close.
Oh.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
3 o'clock on the 14th. Okay,
Yes.
I have a doctor at 10:40. I'll be back by.
So Kim, you let us know if we're, yeah, you'll let us know if that in fact gets canceled.